All right. So first of all, I want to welcome everyone here. We're so happy to have our friend Senator Tina Smith. James and I are so happy to have her here. I want to give you a little bit of information about Tina Smith. There's a lot because she's done so much, but just a few pointers about her that I want you to know. I want you to know the first, Tina Smith was appointed to the Senate and is running for her first full term after winning a special election for the seat in 2018. Prior to her time as senator, she ran her own business, served as chief of staff for both Minneapolis Mayor R.T. Ryback, and served as chief of staff for Governor Mark Dayton. In 2004, Senator Smith was elected lieutenant governor alongside Governor Dayton. Together, the two of them championed tax fairness, health care, early childhood, education, rural broadband access, and many, many more. Currently, Senator Smith serves on the Senate committees of Banking, Housing, Urban Affairs Committee, Health, Education, Labor, Pension Committee, Indian Affairs Committee, and the Agricultural, Nutrition, and Forestry Committee. Senator Smith has successfully had over 24 of her bills and provisions signed into law to help improve the lives of Minnesotans. I had the pleasure of working with Senator Smith as her general counsel when she was a lieutenant governor. And I know personally how committed she is to serving all Minnesotans. So with great enthusiasm, I want to welcome you to get to know the amazing person that James, my husband, and I know, Senator Tina Smith.
Well, thank you so much.
I'm going to open up questions, starting with my husband.
How was Senator Smith going to talk first?
Well, maybe if I could just say, I just want to thank you all. It's great to be with you. I was just saying how as I'm here in Washington tonight and wishing I was home in so many ways, it is wonderful to be able to have this conversation. Kim and James, thank you so much. Kim, we worked so closely together when we were both in the Dayton-Smith administration. And so it's great to see you again. And James, you and I got to know one another a little bit as well during that time. So I'm really interested in having, thank you so much. And I'm really interested in having a conversation today. I know that you all have been working on the question of how do we create more opportunity for Black and Brown and Indigenous African-American businesses. We have so many challenges on the North Side, really throughout Minnesota. And I want to just say as we start this conversation that I think I have been very focused on the reality that we have in Minnesota, these deep, deep disparities, and in housing and education and access to capital and healthcare, and that these are disparities in access to opportunity that I think are really not an accident of history. It is our history. And until we can really address this and grapple with it and see it and then take action, nothing is really going to change. And as I have thought a lot about what I want to accomplish in the 6 years, I hope to be able to earn from the people of Minnesota in just a little over 8 days. This is something that I'm determined to focus on. And I've got great committees to be able to do that work from. And so I'm really excited to hear what you're all working on, what is on your minds, and how we can work together as we tackle what is, I think, just the greatest challenge, truly the greatest challenge that we have in this moment as we look towards how to move our country forward and how to move our state forward. So Kim and James and everybody, thank you so much. I look forward to the conversation and I really appreciate the chance to be together with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Smith. I'd like to open by stating or riding the coattail of some of the things that you mentioned. But also part of that is that several hundreds of millions of dollars were raised upon the murder of George Floyd, which happened right here in Minneapolis. However, virtually none of those funds have actually flowed back into the most impoverished areas of Minneapolis. And frankly, the majority of the money actually left the state. Minneapolis, as you indicated, Senator, well, somewhat indicated, has one of the worst wealth disparities between white and people of color in the United States. And multiple studies show a significant part of the disparity is the lack of Black business ownership in our communities. And the majority of businesses in the Black communities are owned by non-Blacks, which removes the money from recirculating in the community. And furthermore, interested Black business property owners, several of which I work with, have been stymied in multiple ways by many entities, including commercial lenders, commercial realtors, the actual city and state entities, and so forth. So my question is, Senator Smith, would you be willing to help our efforts to make Minneapolis commercial property more accessible for actual Black and people of color ownership?
Yeah, well, I would really love to work with you on this. And I think in the committee that I'm thinking, especially of the work that we could do together, as I'm hoping we take back the majority, and we've got Sherrod Brown as the chair of the Banking and Housing and Urban Affairs Committee. And there's so much that we could do in that committee with the right leadership. You are, I completely agree with what you're talking about, James, the issues that you're raising. You've got a very small proportion of businesses in Black communities that are owned by African Americans. If they do own those businesses, it is very likely that they don't own the buildings that the businesses are located in. And so they don't have the control over their own destiny that you would like to see. Now, the reason for that is historic, right? Who has owned those buildings for a long time. And if you drive through, and then the impact of that on the ways in which those buildings are maintained, the investments in improving those buildings, you can see, and that's sometimes an out of state, an out of community property owner who isn't taking care of those commercial properties like they should. And then, of course, the unrest that we've seen that caused so much damage to commercial corridors in communities of color in Minneapolis and St. Paul, then this all becomes exacerbated by this challenge. And I've been so worried that we would end up losing businesses because the people who own those buildings will end up fixing up those buildings, pricing the local businesses out of that real estate, and then we end up losing local businesses, and we lose Wendy's House of Soul, and we end up getting Noodles and Company because of the way that the property transitions. It's kind of commercial gentrification in the worst sense, I think. So a couple of things that I've been working on that I'd like to share, and then I'd love to hear what you all think about this, because you're going to know, better than I'm going to know what to do. One, I've been working hard to get, I wanted to get, just in terms of the unrest, I wanted to get disaster relief available to folks who lost property and had property damage because of the unrest. That's not the cause of our problem, but it is a part of the systemic challenges that we have. Haven't been able to get that done, but I am working on legislation that would make those SBA loans forgivable, and that would be at least a percentage of them forgivable, and that would be helpful. I also am co-sponsoring legislation with Senator Booker and Senator Harris that would put a significant surge of resources into minority-owned, Black-owned financing institutions, including CDFIs, but also other kinds of financing institutions to get at this challenge we have of lack of access to capital. And then the other thing I want to just mention, and we can talk about this, is that part of the problem we have is that the laws that we have on the books are against discrimination in financial services are not always enforced. And that's the other challenge that we have to push for, especially as we look at reauthorization of the Community Reinvestment Act and some of the other federal policies that are designed to address some of this racism that aren't being enforced the way they should be enforced. Those are some of the things that I'm working on, but I'd love to know what all of you are seeing and what you think, what else we could work on together.
Kim?
Anyone?
Anybody want to?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, is that Trevor?
Yeah.
Yes, this is Trevor Wade here. This is my first Zoom call. I don't do technology real stuff, so I'm just glad that I could even be on here and participating.
Thank you, Trevor. Yeah, it's great to be with you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time to even have the conversation. One thing that you spoke to and is definitely a major thing for me, I'm a master barber and born and raised in South Minneapolis, 22 years experience, and I owned my own barber shop for a minute, but I didn't own the building. So those years that I was open, that was just money just gone. I have nothing to show for it. I didn't get any type of credit. It didn't help me build any credit.
Right.
I even tried to talk to the landlord about helping me get into the business, and he had no interest in sharing anything with me. So as much as it was a beautiful, wonderful experience from all the people that I met and the lives I've been a part of and affected in some way, shape, or form, just as a Black man in the community, from the community, and as a barber, I got nothing for it when it comes to finance and business and moving my business forward.
Yeah.
So that is
Yeah.
definitely something I would like to see change. I mean, if you're renting something, it should be something that you get back for it. You're giving money away. You're I shouldn't say you're giving money away, but you are, but you're spending money, but you should be able to get something in return for that investment. That should be an investment as opposed to just I'm giving you this money just to keep filling your pockets up so you can keep doing what it is that you do to be wealthy, and then I can't see a return on my investment, although
Yeah.
I'm a business owner.
Well, that's
Sorry
exactly
if I
right.
got a
And you
little.
have no. I'm really hearing what you're saying. You've got this sort of systemic inequity where the people who have the wealth own the property, and the people like you that are trying to build wealth, you don't have an avenue to build wealth because you can't. There's the avenue isn't there. We've got to create that avenue.
Right.
And
Somebody has to
that
open the
is
door.
that's part that. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And part of the problem is that, Black-owned banks and community organizations lend to people in community, but we have far, 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 far too few of these. And so this is the deep inequity that we have, right? That's what we have to fix.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, thank you, Trevor. And I'm going to go to the next question. Senator Smith, what will you do to help the impoverished circumstances, especially in North Minneapolis, and will you tour these areas?
Yeah. Well, first, I've spent lots and lots of time in North Minneapolis. I'm just going to talk, I'm sort of focused on North Minneapolis right now, so I'm going to sort of stay with that, though this isn't the only issue, of course. But I've spent a lot of time there, and I will continue to. And I would love to work with those of you on this call. It's not only North Minneapolis, it's South Minneapolis, it's St. Paul, it's Rondo, and to figure out how we can build. How can we build a strong coalition to actually make the change that we need to make? One of the things that I've come to understand, Kim, is that there are really strong community-based organizations, and I'd love to, you all are on this call because you represent that. But in addition, I'm thinking about Neon that I've worked, I've spoken with, and META, and also the faith community, which is very strong. But too often what we do at the federal level is we kind of dole out an insufficient number of resources, and then we force those community-based organizations to compete amongst one another for small dollars. And then those organizations are starved for resources. They're unable to build capacity and unable to do what they know how to do. and then they don't get the results that they could get because it's like they're all starving. And that to me is what needs to change. I think there's a real tendency as we think about how to change this these systemic challenges that are around, like a history of redlining, a history of income and wealth inequality. There's a tendency sometimes also for the federal government or sort of white people, honestly, to kind of come in and say, oh, we're going to come in and solve this problem. We're going to come in and tell, we know what to do. We'll consult with you, but we're going to swoop in. And that is exactly the wrong thing to do in this moment and in any moment. And so I want to avoid that pitfall. The exciting thing, and I am actually optimistic about this as much as I see what a terrible challenge we're in and how COVID has sort of exacerbated these disparities and this the kind of the racist outcomes of our community. What I'm excited about is the winning this election and then doing the work that we all have to do together to change that. And one of the things, you've got poverty levels in Black communities that are multiple times higher than in white communities, and so you got to address that by bringing jobs and bringing resources and bringing strong public safety, by allowing people to build wealth in the communities. And I just keep on coming down to how I think that is about some fundamental things that we have to do, like raising the minimum wage, making sure that people have access to healthcare so that one terrible healthcare bill doesn't just completely destroy their families' economic stability, or one car loan, one car problem doesn't mess everything up. But then going to work on what we can do to create businesses from the community that are creating jobs in the community. And let's build on that. Let's see how we can make that, how can we build on that from the perspective of creating, from an environmental justice perspective, from creating opportunities in clean energy jobs, for example. But it could be anything. The point is that we have to purposefully and mindfully say it is not an accident of history that there aren't opportunities in these communities, and we have to repair that. And we have to do that in a mindful way.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you anymore, Senator Smith. And I'm going to be a bit transparent here. Call it what you may, even as running a nonprofit foundation, Black Lion Foundation. We definitely throw our hat in the ring as far as giving an opportunity of 6 more years to represent us to you, Senator, to try to help us resolve this. Your opponent has no interest in helping us resolve any of this. I think we all know that, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But my next question is that in that regard, as far as actually allowing the area to build and develop wealth, my father used to put an emphasis on hand-ups and not handouts. Almost like you give someone a fish, they'll eat for one day. You teach them to fish, they can feed themselves for a lifetime. And I strongly believe in our foundation is that if we can get more Black commercial ownership, then that has a multiplying effect where we can help ourselves. Are you committed to helping more focused grant money toward actual Black commercial ownership in Minneapolis and St. Paul?
Yeah, I absolutely am committed to addressing that problem. And as I said, I think that the way to do that, I'd love to know what you all think is the best way of doing that. But I think that it is extremely important to do that by building on the community-based organizations, by expanding access to capital and fixing that challenge that we have where there is just a door that never opens when it comes to addressing that access to capital problem.
If you all don't mind me chiming in, I think the term, and I've told this amongst my friends, cutting hair over the years, we need access to everything, not just a couple things.
Yeah.
So it's access is the key. That's
access is the That's exactly right. If there was fair and just, if there was justice in the way access is offered, then we are going to be, but what we have to do is we have to understand that there are these racist policies that have been placed for generations,
Yeah,
and we have to
yeah.
replace them with
And
anti-racist policies.
right, we need we need policies that give us access as opposed to the
Mhm.
policies that have denied us access over the years. So it's a continued fight.
If I may chime in a
Oh,
little.
sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I'm thinking about what you're saying, and yeah, and I'm thinking of what it looks like on the ground level, sort of
Right.
zooming in, right? So you have these policies that will even the playing field. We talk about access to capital and policies that will hopefully infuse funding and money into communities that need it. And specifically they're geared toward uh, really creating more Black-owned businesses, or at least supporting more Black-owned businesses. And I'm zooming in on that, and I'm thinking of sort of an application of those policies. And perhaps this is already being done, and I'm not aware of it. But you know, in terms of access to everything, there are so many businesses that are owned by Black and brown people in our communities that that are owned by very hardworking people who have tried and tried for so long to scale their businesses, to grow them, or to even start them to no avail for all the reasons we're talking about. What if the state or the city had a way to really partner with local organizations like Black Lion Foundation, right? To partner with them so that there is a network of resources that these business owners can access simply by coming and knocking on the door of Black Lion Foundation, which is on the ground. So let's say I own a cookie business, which I do, and I need, right? I have a great product and I need to scale my business. I need a facility to operate. I need funding to get a mixer and an oven. I need branding and a website and all of these different things.
Yes.
I
Yes.
knock on Mr. Holmes's door. I say, "This is what I need. Help me out."
Yes, exactly.
There needs to be a way that Mr. Holmes is working. The state is supporting that Black Lion Foundation either through funding, grants that Mr. Holmes can then make accessible to me as a business owner, so that at the push of a button, Mr. Holmes has on retainer a Black-owned design company, like the one I own as well, to build out my cookie company using the funding that's coming through, the state, and also a place where I can get rental equipment that is, again, funded by the state. So that I'm just thinking practically, what does this actually look like? And do we have those sort of structures of resources in place for someone who walks through the door and says, "Hey, I've been trying to get this business off the ground, but I don't have any of these things. How can you help me?" And then put in place.
Well, I think you're touching on so many of the kinds of tools that we could have at our disposal if we did this correctly. And I'd love to hear Mary Karen's perspective on this, because as you are listening in on this conversation as well. But so one thing you mentioned is that there is you purposefully create a network of Black-owned businesses that know who they are, and they make themselves, they're connected so that you can go out of your way to work with those businesses and hire those businesses. This is something that we could do in the, in the African American community, but but what's really powerful also is if we got the Fortune 500 companies and the other big companies in Minnesota, and we got the state government, which has billions of dollars of purchasing power, to say that they are purposefully going to hire and engage Black and Brown owned businesses and create opportunities for them. Because right now the system is set up so that those big companies automatically go to the businesses that they already know, which are more likely than not owned by white people.
Right.
And so you have, again, a lack of access. So that's one thing, is creating that kind of network of market access. Another thing that you're talking about is the need that a lot of businesses have, no matter how successful they are, for technical assistance and consulting as they're working to scale. It's hard to scale a small business into a medium-sized business, and no matter how good a business person you are, figuring that out is hard. And so there are organizations that offer that, but often, again, they're resource constrained, right? So they can't work with enough businesses. You can't get to the scale that you need. So how do you get to that scale? Again, the federal government is investing billions of dollars and creating, we just put $50 billion into helping to protect the airline industry, for God's sake. So we cannot allow ourselves to have this sense of false scarcity. Oh, this would be nice to do, but we can't afford it. I'm not gonna swear here because I'm feeling like swearing right now. That's nonsense. And then the other thing that you're saying, which I think could be part of this could be grants, and part of it could be low interest loans. The problem we have is that Black and Brown owned businesses often have a difficult time establishing the kind of credit history that you want to establish, because just as Trevor is saying, you can't ever get ahead of the ball because of the way the system is set up. And so that is, I think the way to address that is by putting resources into community-based organizations. But I was just curious, Mary Ken, do you want to say something about this? Because I know you know about this too.
I'm not sure what I know about it, but one thing I wonder is, like the wealth gap is people-based, so it's race-based, and it's horrible, right. And it's also place-based. And one of the things that anybody our age has seen over time is you start getting a neighborhood and it gets a little bit of energy. And then, like you said, Noodles and Company and Target and everybody comes in and the little businesses are gone. And I would be really interested in some kind of policy solution that allows a neighborhood to gentrify, but gives people credit for having been there, and they get special privileges. So, if Trevor's been there, I don't know where your barbershop was. I see you're wearing a Minneapolis South shirt. I graduated from Central. My kids went to South. So are you over there? But anyway, if you've been there.
I grew up on.
Okay. Anyway,
No,
I lost him. Anyway, if you've been there a long, long time, and then suddenly it's a great place to be, somebody needs to own the fact that those business owners need to stay there, and they need to be supported like we're supporting the airlines, for goodness sakes.
Yeah. Well, one idea that I'm really excited about is sort of the community housing trust idea, which there is some folks that are working on this in Minneapolis and also in St. Paul. There's a Rondo housing trust. So basically the idea is that you capture the growth in equity in commercial property, or it could be, it's being used right now for home ownership. And then you attach that to the house itself, rather than, so the person who owned the house gets some of the equity, but it also stays attached to the property in order to maintain the community-based ownership in that community. And I'm not saying that correctly, because it's not like it's owned by the community, but it is a way of addressing this issue of gentrification in housing. And I think it could also work in commercial property as well. And I think it's a really cool idea, and it's being used in some places.
That is really cool. Mary Karen and I actually went to high school together at Minneapolis Central, unfortunately, which is closed now. So not trying to give away our age too much, but so we stay in touch, and we actually have a close group. And her and I, we were texting back and forth the other day, and something she mentioned to me as far as the question, you may have part of that, Senator Smith. She said that we're seeing such a dramatic trend toward just the open expression of racism, and right now with harder economic times, how can we encourage the community to work together to resolve some of these issues rather than developing into angry opposing groups? I just thought that was such a profound question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's just be honest. The president that we have right now is fueling this fire, and he is communicating, sometimes explicitly, that expressing these kinds of racist views is acceptable. And, you know, he did it most, I mean, I'm not even going to go into it because I'm just so appalled by it. But my own, you know, my opponent in this Senate race is basically, you know, showing images of the city burning as a way of saying, whose side are you on? And this language around, you know, they're going to take over the suburbs. I mean, we know what they mean by that.
Absolutely.
That is not, and so what do we do about this? I mean, I don't mean to sound simplistic about it in this moment, but we have to win these elections. We have to win these elections. We have to have Americans say, no, that is not what we do. And then the work can get going again. And we've had such a moment, I think, in this country over the last summer when we had millions of people take to the streets to say that it is not acceptable for police officers to be murdering Black people. They took to the street not only because of that, but because they believe that we should have we have to reckon with this racial inequality in our country. And that was powerful, but we have to move that then now to the next, we have to keep it moving because there's a history in our country of making progress on race and equity and then falling back again. And we all are going to have to push on this. And it gets to what I was saying earlier about how it's not enough to just say that you are opposed to the racist views of the president or others. What we all have to do is to say we want to advance anti-racist views. And that is a posture of activism, not just being kind
consistent action.
Right.
So if you guys don't mind me chiming in, so back to one of the points we were talking about as far as access, like, because people are always paying something, so let that add to people building credit, because people are paying a phone bill, people are paying rent, let that work towards building some type of credit, or not some type of credit, let that work toward building credit, because people are giving money, they're giving money to somebody. You're living somewhere, you're paying a phone bill, you're paying whatever you're paying, so let it create credit for you. That shouldn't just be money that a person is throwing away. Let it build credit. And call it a radical idea, I don't know, but it just has always made sense to me. Like, whatever you're doing with your money, whether you're paying rent or you're paying a phone bill, it should be going towards building your credit.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I have been, you know, the more I think about it, you know, over the last, you know, several years, there has been all this conversation about financial literacy. And, you know, the idea was that, you know, we need to help people get better at managing their money and managing their checking accounts and, you know, getting banked and all of that. And the more I think, you know, I can't even say that anymore because it somehow suggests that people don't know what to do, when actually the problem is that people don't have access to what they need to do. And it is exactly what you're saying, Trevor.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you, Senator Smith. Well, and this is actually Mary Karen's question, but it's really all of our questions, is you want to know, how can we support you in the work that you want to do and the great work that we hear that you want to do?
Well, first of all, everybody needs, I'm sure everybody has voted. If you haven't voted, you need to be sure and vote. Just remember that Minnesota is the land of close elections. I don't believe the polls, positive or negative. The only thing I really believe is that we have had well over 1 million people already vote, and we have to vote. And then, but you know, the election is not the end. The election is the means to the end, and the end is the work that we have to do. And so I'm so optimistic that we can win these elections, that I'm hopeful that Joe and Kamala will be in the White House and that we'll win a Senate majority, and then we'll be able to make the kinds of policy changes that we're talking about at the federal level, Governor Walz can make at the state level and at the local level, and move these issues forward. And I can't do that. I mean, as you can see, I've got lots of ideas, but you're going to have ideas too. And I don't want to just be, I want to come back many times to the all of the communities that are affected by these systemic challenges and learn more about what we can do together and figure out how to lift up, as I said, the community-based organizations that are going to know, are well positioned to make the change that we need, as long as they have the resources and the support to do that.
Thank you, Senator. Well, we're kind of close out of time.
Yeah.
But I wanted to thank everyone for participating, and I'm gonna let James have the last word there.
Senator, thank you so much. We appreciate it greatly. And like I said, I know I'm transparent here, but we support you greatly. We want you to be in for the next 6 years because we feel like you will at least invite us to the table to talk about solutions. So I cannot express how much we appreciate that. We're very humbled by it, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate being invited to your table, because that is where there is so much, there's so much power in the community. And I want to be able to tap into that and reflect it and lift it up as much as I possibly can.
Thank you, Senator.
Right.
Thank you everyone for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Sorry.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.